captains of industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We just had lunch. Good afternoon. Great. We have energy. It is an honor to be with you today, especially your presence, which underscores the confidence that you have in the Commonwealth. I bring you greetings from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Excellency John Dramani Mahama. My profound gratitude also goes to the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council for the kind invitation to His Excellency. I'm excited to get the opportunity to represent him at this occasion. Let me also take this opportunity to congratulate Her Excellency Shirley Ayoko-Botchwey on her assumption of office as Secretary General of the Commonwealth. We are proud of her as the first Ghanaian to occupy this high office. You agree with me that today we've had the opportunity to listen to speakers and roundtable discussants on attracting strategic investment to especially Commonwealth countries. My $10 check is ready because I dare say that given the current tariff war confronting the world, which seeks to undermine multilateral trade, we as the Commonwealth must see this as a challenge and as an opportunity at the same time. We have immediate control over the opportunity, and that is to deepen bilateral trade and investment opportunity among ourselves. In view of this, I wish to reiterate my government's commitment to intensifying economic diplomacy that transitions Ghana into a single, stable economy driven by vibrant export trade, industrialization, and foreign direct investment. For some of you, Africa is not a new terrain, but for others, you might be exploring the possibility of finalizing your investment decision, and I'm fully convinced that today's engagement will settle any doubt in your mind. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, according to the World Bank, Africa's GDP is expected to escalate to 4.1% in 2025 and 4.4% in 2026, mainly driven by economic reforms, declining inflation, and improved fiscal and debt positions. The growth rebound in Africa, according to the African Development Bank, will be propelled by effective implementation of policy measures and improvement in global economic conditions. The report further pointed out that, given these positive indicators, Africa will remain the second fastest growing region globally, with 40 countries, including Ghana, set to achieve higher growth rates relative to the 2023 outlook. The government of Ghana is committed to resetting the country with special emphasis on improving the business environment to respond to private sector needs and stimulate investment in strategic sectors of the economy. To further solidify investor confidence, we are poised to strengthen policy stability, transparency, and predictability, establishing long-term measures that will reduce risk for investors. This includes reform aimed at improving the ease of doing business, skill development, and enhancing labor market policies to respond to modern industries. In order to achieve this, government is set on implementing initiatives and programs that require functional partnership at three main levels: government to government, government to business, and business to business. These partnerships are essential to unlock the massive economic potential of Ghana and other Commonwealth countries driven by trade and investment. In this regard, we are implementing the following programs which require partnership and investment with Commonwealth countries and investors herein present. 1. Feed the Industry Program. It is designed to boost production of local raw materials under commercial contract farming to ensure consistent and sufficient supply of high-quality agricultural produce for industrial use, such as grains, oilseeds, tuber, meat, just to mention a few, and also pay attention to non-agricultural raw materials for heavy and light manufacturing industries. We also have the Rapid Industrialization for Job Initiative. This program also aims to accelerate industrial growth by promoting value addition and value extension for both domestic consumption and for exports. The initiative will focus on establishing strategic industries and reviving defunct ones to create jobs, stimulate economic growth, and enhance Ghana's competitiveness on the global market. We also have the Accelerated Export Development Program. This also needs investment. A dedicated initiative designed to deliver Ghana's shared vision for rapid growth and transformation of non-traditional export sector by volume, value, and employment outcomes. These programs and initiatives are strategic and important because they place Ghana in a better position to be competitive globally as well as regionally, taking advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The following sectors also offer enormous investment opportunities for potential investors: manufacturing, agribusiness, renewable and green energy, textiles and garments, advanced machinery for industrialization, ICT sector, telecommunication infrastructure, tourism, and hospitality infrastructure. Let me also assure you that the Ghana High Commission, through the Trade and Investments section, will handhold you to navigate your way about in Ghana. On this note, I want to take this opportunity to welcome potential investors to come and explore Ghana, our unparalleled and competitive returns on investment, our ease of doing business, litigation-free lands, repatriation of profits, just to mention a few. Ghana is indeed ready to do business, and Ghana is ready to share with you our success story for our mutual benefit. You are therefore warmly invited to our great country situated in the middle of the world, where doing business is fun and returns on your investment is great. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We've heard from one of the key economies in West Africa, Ghana. We're now going to hear from the other key economy in West Africa, and the two are, of course, closely related, for better or for worse. To chair our next session, I would like to invite up to the stage moderator Nana Adjoa Hackman. He's a managing partner at Africa Legal Associates. Nana.
Thank you, Landry. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, including my own Honorable Minister for Trade from Ghana. Thank you for staying with us after that lunch break to listen to our brief but important fireside chat on advancing regional trade through the digital economy. To set the stage for our discussion, since January 2021, when the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area agreements began, much has been done by member states in terms of putting together the framework, the policies, the protocols needed, and also in terms of bringing down progressively the, well, 20, I think I'm going to incur £20 charge here, in terms of bringing, progressively reducing the tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade, and also financing the infrastructure that is needed for the dream of a single market of 1.4 billion plus people to become a reality. Bringing it all home to the Commonwealth, 21 out of the 56 Commonwealth countries come from Africa. And it stands to reason, therefore, that any increase in trade among African countries would mean an increase in trade among Commonwealth nations. So definitely we're discussing a CTIS, and I guess that's why we've heard a lot about AFCFTA already since this morning. Also, with 21 African countries benefiting from the Commonwealth advantage, we could say that the Commonwealth is itself an enabler of trade under the AFCFTA. In this session this afternoon, we're going to be talking about another equally important enabler of trade, and that is technology and the digital economy. Just last year, in January, I believe I think it was 9th of February of 2024, the AFCFTA, the AU member states adopted the AFCFTA protocol on digital trade. And it is expected that this would be a catalyst for enhanced trade and that the continent would definitely be transformed economically. Now, how exactly is this going to happen? And what would this mean for MSMEs and groups like women and youth that tend to be marginalized, but that form a significant proportion of trade, cross-border informal trade? It's said that about 70 to 80% of cross-border trade in Africa is done by women and youth. Recently, in February of 2025, the African Union endorsed Nigeria as the digital trade champion for the continent. And for that reason, it is an absolute pleasure and privilege for me to be joined on this fireside chat by the lady who is leading that charge for Nigeria and all of Africa. She's a distinguished jurist, academic, and policy reformer. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask you all to help me to make welcome to the stage Nigeria's Minister for Industry, Trade, and Investment, Her Excellency Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, joining us on stage for the second time. Also on this panel is another powerhouse, one of South Africa's leading women entrepreneurs. She's very modest. She wouldn't like me to call her powerhouse, but she is. She's the co-founder and executive chairwoman of Women Investment Portfolio Holdings, WIPHOLD. It's a private equity firm. Through WIPHOLD, she has since 1994 facilitated the financial independence of countless women and been instrumental in creating opportunities for women in traditionally male-dominated sectors like mining, finance, and telecommunications. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Ms. Louisa Mojela. So I'll just join them now in my seat for that discussion. Ladies, thank you for agreeing to do this with me. To start off, I'd like to ask you both, and if we'd start with Jumoke, how can, if you can share your thoughts on how the digital economy can, increase access to finance across the Commonwealth?
Across the Commonwealth. Well, let me start with the African Continental Free Trade Area. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back. And how we have seen that catalyzing access to finance across Africa. So many people, not all here, may know that Nigeria has been leading in financial services under the AFCFTA and just in general with the technology space and with our banks. They've gone across Africa, both the traditional banks like Zenith Bank and also fintechs like Flutterwave. This has facilitated more people across the continent, more businesses, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, women and youth-led businesses to access capital, which was previously not the case. So financial inclusion, you heard my colleague from Kenya speaking about the importance of financial inclusion down to rural areas across the continent. We see that the use of technology has, well, I say decentralized the focus of only a few people having access to capital. So we've seen more businesses moving from the informal sector into the formal sector. So taking these learnings, the size of, in terms of people, maybe about 1 billion more people on the Commonwealth and on the African continent, and the combined GDP, about $13 trillion, I believe. This is a similar model that can be adopted, the use of technology to scale access to finance across all demographics in our countries, and making sure that there's a synergy in the services that we provide. For instance, the Afrexim has a payment settlement system that has, again, democratized the use of financial services across the continent. I can pay in Naira and my partner receives in Rand in South Africa. This takes away from the use of correspondence banks in London and New York. We keep that capital on the continent. And so those are some of the areas that have helped with the AFCFTA, and we continue to look forward to deepening that. And the last point I would make is that at Addis Ababa in February, I attended the Africa Club breakfast where financial institutions, development financial institutions on the continent, led by Afrexim Bank, AFDB, African Re, African Finance Corporation, have come together to pool funds to be able to deliver more capital, access to capital for Africans in Africa. These are some of the things that I think that the Commonwealth advantage can turn into a Commonwealth opportunity for us all. Thank you.
Interesting that you mentioned also the issue of payments, because recently Ghana and Nigeria also announced that they're piloting this scheme of interoperability for payment systems between Ghana and Nigeria, between the Ghana cedi and the Nigerian Naira. So these things are all happening. Louisa, I'll come to you. You, I could say, were way ahead of your time. You've been doing this thing for many years, even at a time when the digital economy was at its early stages. What would you say is the difference that this is going to make now for access to finance?
Thank you, Nana, and good afternoon, everyone. For me, I think the key thing is government, they make policies. And these policies, they must work for everyone. So when we talk digital economy, we must always also have at the back of our mind the rural women, the women out there in the village, because they are looking for the same thing that I'm looking for in Johannesburg whilst they are in the village. We have smartphones in the cities. An ordinary woman out there in the village does not have access to smartphone. We have broadband in the cities. The rural woman out there, broadband is limited. Because for you to be able to trade or pay your M-Pesa through your M-Pesa or any other payment that needs to be done through EFT, whatever, you need network. So when you don't have a network, that is a big barrier to you as a woman in the rural area. So yes, these policies are there, and they need to be implemented so that they can work for all of us. They should not just be for people in the cities. The second thing that I would talk about is the difference between us when we started as WIPHOLD and many other countries is because the government of South Africa made it a policy for the empowerment, not only of black people, but of women, because we came from, they were addressing the imbalance of the previous era. So that makes a difference, because now it becomes a government policy and it must be implemented. So our government, women continue to be left out in the mainstream economy, and really we all need to take concerted effort to make sure that women are brought in the forefront, Minister. The Continental Africa Trade Agreement is there. Let's make sure that the policies that are made will also benefit women so that they do not continue to be left behind. I think that will be my few comments.
So a message there for our ministers in the room and all governments across the continent of Africa, deliberate action. Thank you so much for that. So, Jumoke, I'd like to come back to you, and congratulations again on Nigeria being endorsed as AU Digital Trade Champion. What I want you to share with us is how is Nigeria's leadership positioning itself to help Africa through this digital economic transformation, and what can other Commonwealth nations learn from Nigeria's experience?
Okay, thanks, Nana. So the Digital Trade Championships, co-championship actually, South Africa and Kenya were also digital trade champions under the AFCFTA. Nigeria, our president indicated actually at the BIC Commission in Cape Town at South Africa in December, his willingness to lead on the digital trade agenda for the African continent. And this is because, as I said earlier, it's where Nigeria is very competitive. There are about 12 unicorns on the continent. About 50% of those are in Nigeria. And it's just where our young people have a competitive advantage. And so we prioritize the ICT and the digital trade agenda. So as digital trade champions, it's not for Nigeria alone. We made the point at Davos, we went with a very targeted agenda. Africa is the only region in the world that has completed its digital trade framework, the protocol and the annexes. And because the AFCFTA on its own is a unique agreement, is the first agreement that focuses on women, on youth-led businesses, on MSMEs. So in that vein, it's an agreement that's custom, it's purpose-built for the African continent. So with Digital Trade Championship, what this means is that we focus on transactions, on drawing investment to the continent, to our country and to the entire continent. We focus on facilitating public digital infrastructure for the entire continent. We work very closely with the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Ghana. We're rolling out an agenda on what the Digital Trade Championship will do for the African continent. It speaks to market access, it speaks to attracting investment in that space. There are quite a few regions that are already interested in our space. Traditionally, if I speak for Nigeria, our fintechs get a lot of funding from the US, but we have a lot of interest. You heard the minister from Qatar speaking about that space. Saudi, UAE, other regions across the world are also very interested in our digital space. So making sure that the pipeline, the talent pipeline from Nigeria and from Africa as a whole in that area is just phenomenal, it's endless. And it's not just fintech, edutech, the creative sector is doing phenomenally well, and the interface between technology and the creative sector, a lot going on, animation, film, so many things, music, and all these are where technology is also an enabler. It's helping the continent to leapfrog. We've also focused very closely on making sure that Nigeria and other African countries can be outsourcing hubs. These are an industry that has grown phenomenally, and other continents have done it well. But for a country like Nigeria, where we're an English-speaking population with a good time zone and a self-driven entrepreneurial young people, we've identified it as an area, and we know that this can work for the rest of the continent. So we continue to equip them with what they need in terms of market access tools, mapping, digital trade services, making sure that e-commerce and facilitation, that the interfaces across countries in Africa speaking the same language in terms of technology now, and so that the buying and selling, there's a synergy, there's a sync, and making sure that capital that wants to come to the continent can come in a harmonized manner that works for African people.
Wonderful. Indeed, that, I mean, it's really good because Africa having the most youthful population, you know, globally, it makes sense that we really empower them to be able to provide these services to the world. I'll come back to that on what we can do, what more we can do to empower women and youth. But before we do that, I'd like to ask Louisa, since you've been doing this for decades, what are some of the barriers that you've come across? You know, I'm sure that many of them, especially when you started, barriers that you've come across to women accessing finance for business.
Thank you, Nana. What is amazing is 30 years ago when we established the company, the challenges and the barriers that we experience in accessing finance, they still exist today, regrettably. Because largely, especially I'll speak on South Africa, because largely the financial institutions are in the hands of men. And every time a woman comes for a credible project to be funded, they will always be second behind another man project. So I really don't know, Minister, maybe we really need to, as women, try to find out how do we solve this challenge of access to finance. Do we begin to establish our own women-friendly financial institutions that can then begin to look favorably at women? Because as I say, continuously, access to funding, access to finance continue to be a biggest barrier. Whether this is for the market woman out there or whether this is professional women or real big entrepreneurs, access to finance continues to be a barrier.
I think that it's really, I mean, since you directed the question to me as a minister and as a female minister, I think I should chip something in. I think what it is that the phenomenal work that you've been doing in the last 3 decades, I see that, I mean, we just finished the month of March, a lot has happened. Sometimes, maybe being in the trenches, you still experience the challenges all the time. But I feel that when women come together with institutions like yours, I look at yours with a lot of admiration and I see the difference that has happened. I know that financial institutions, the story has changed. They do know that female entrepreneurs, they pay their debts. I mean, this is something that empirically, we know the evidence globally. And African women have not been an exception. We know that when we lend to cooperatives of women, I've heard the statistics, and bankers have spoken. I was at a session just last month saying that the least non-performing loans on the entire portfolio, it was First Bank of Nigeria, their lowest, least performing loans was from their products that was for their women. So I think that women coming together and being equipped to access those loans in a coordinated manner and having the support that they need, women, they have that fidelity, that loyalty, and pay their debts. So that for financial inclusion. And to the bankers in the room, since it's been put on the minister in the room twice, let's give it to the bankers in the room, but really phenomenal work supporting them. I think we really need to appreciate that, so, yeah.
Women do pay their debts.
If I can also say another comment, because women largely, we are the largest consumers of the economy. So that should benefit us. We must try to galvanize our purchasing power and, convert it into access to capital.
So I think basically a lot of progress has been made, but a lot more needs to be done, and that's what, Louisa, you're trying to say. I guess hence the theme for International Women's Month this year, Accelerate Action, because so much more needs to be done when it comes to that. Louisa, if I come back to you again, have you had any, do you have any, does WIPHOLD have any investments in other countries in Africa? And if so, what has been the experience? If not, are you looking to now expand into other parts of Africa with the developments going on now and with the digital economy really picking up?
Thank you, Nana. Yes, we are looking now, but we did previously. 25 years ago, we went to Nigeria, we went to Ghana, we went to DRC, we went to Zambia, we went to Zimbabwe. Sadly, again, unfortunately, politics, they set us apart. The advantage with us in South Africa, when we established WIPHOLD, we took the view that as women in the country, we were facing the same challenges, the same problems, and as such, we did not look who was ANC, who was PAC, who was what. We simply came together as women. And this is why we are still existing today. Because when we went to the countries I've mentioned, there was always a problem that so-and-so cannot lead because she comes from this party, so-and-so. It was just too problematic. We need to look at the bigger picture, that as women, we need to be financially independent for a myriad of other reasons. We are the custodians of the economy as African women. And as such, we just need to make sure that we have this access to capital, because we are the ones who need to make sure that children are at school, take care of the burials. I mean, so many things that women carry. And therefore, we need to move away from, petty politics, that so-and-so belongs to this, and look at the bigger picture. So yes, we continue to look, but I think we missed the mark previously when we went to those countries to sell the vision, because the vision is the same. Women, we have the same challenges, we have the same problems, whether you belong to one party or another party, or whether you are white or black, because we have always experienced marginalization. So the problem is the same. We just need to find common ground, how to fix it for ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, but I like that. I like the point that you continue to look. And when we spoke earlier before coming into the room for the session, you mentioned to me how much you like coming to Ghana in the past. So I look forward to seeing WIPHOLD established in Ghana, extending its business to Ghana. Right, so Jumoke, let me ask you this. The AFCFTA, yes, we're implementing it now. The digital trade protocol is in force. Recently, the annexes that were being negotiated have all come into being. Usually it's said that the problem is really not with having the frameworks, but with implementation. If you can speak for yourself and other trade ministers and all of that, how are we really going to make sure that implementation, is done properly, efficiently, and that this is really the game changer that we all project that it's going to be?
That's a good question, Nana. So when the AFCFTA started, in terms of even negotiating the agreement, the world really didn't think Africa could do it. And it was completed in record time, and trading started. But I still keep getting asked when I speak internationally, when will trading start? Trading started, it's been 5 years now since COVID. The Guided Trading Initiative was a successful pilot, and now more and more countries have gazetted. So trade has commenced under AFCFTA. The levels of intra-African trade are growing, projected to be about 50% by 2030, and that's a huge tall order. What we have, as you've noted, is it's not for want of having a well-articulated framework, and so it behoves African people to trade. trade in goods, trade in services, now that all the rules are in place. But what it would take from the government side would be enablement. So trade facilitation. I know that, for instance, the Comptroller General of Customs in Nigeria will be hosting all the Comptroller Generals of Customs across the continent in Abuja this quarter. Because without the customs officials allowing goods to move, you know that the level of getting to 50% intra-African trade penetration will be a pipe dream. Making sure that free movement of people as well, free movement for services to move, you really do need people to be able to move from country to country, and all the trade facilitation around that in terms of visas and access and movement of people. So the heads of state have been committed and have moved year on year on the AfCFTA agenda, but it would take us as trade ministers supporting our constituency, supporting businesses, supporting particularly the informal sector. I think what is most unique about the AfCFTA is the support of smaller businesses, the support of women-led businesses, youth-led businesses, the support of really just MSMEs to be able to have your inputs from Kenya, have your inputs from Accra, have your inputs from Morocco, and have your suppliers in Zambia, making that connectivity. And for sure, that connectivity, because the movement of goods and people, because it costs quite a bit, will not go as far as it can without the digital trade, which is why it's so important, and which is why the digital public infrastructure is also very important. But no matter how good that is, especially for movement in goods, if the infrastructure and the trade facilitation isn't sorted out, if the people are not trained in terms of meeting of standards, what the Food and Drug Administration, the allowing of movements of goods, and for trade and services, for the businesses to know who is my regulator, what do I need to do? So that granularity of enablement is what is the real work that as trade ministers we have to do. We have to handhold our people, we have to talk with each other, we have to make sure that we enable this agreement to take root and prosper.
Great, thank you very much. And in wrapping up this session, I'll just ask you both to share your thoughts quickly on staying again on the subject of MSMEs, women and youth, because they form the significant proportion of the cross-border trade that we're talking about. But their play tends to be really small because it's informal and all of that. What can we all do to empower these groups to really take advantage of the opportunities that the free trade area presents us with? So, Louisa, if I can start with you and then end with Jumoke.
For me, I will say something maybe controversial. I would like to see this kind of forum taking place in Nigeria or Ghana or anywhere in the continent so that our informal sector, they can have access to attending this type of forum and learn and benefit, and also contribute to the economies of those countries. We are here in London. I'm sure each one of us spending no less than 500 rand a day, 500 pounds, sorry. That's a lot of money. So if we can pump this to our economies, well and good. Thank you.
Yeah. So we for sure will be in Kinshasa next week, Ministers of Trade, for AU Ministers of Trade. We'll also be in Lusaka in, I think it's June, to also talk about AfCFTA specifically. Obviously, we stay on the continent, so that's a very good...
But not as Commonwealth.
No. Even with not just Commonwealth, but that's where, again, I would say technology comes in, amplification, virtual viewing of things like this, so that the people in the room... Well, you make a very good point, which is why I made about payment systems. And so as a group collectively, we're talking about AfCFTA as an example of what the Commonwealth also can do in the turbulent times that we find ourselves in the world. Even in our West African region, we just are having our own classification. I won't use the T word, so I don't have to pay my own £10. But the world is changing. We've seen it across different countries. And so what happens at a larger level goes down into the microcosm of how it affects African people, particularly the young, because there's so many of them on the African continent. It's a very young continent. So how do we look sustainably at helping them to grow and helping them to thrive? It's more and more and more engagement and listening. What are their pain points? What kind of help do they need? And then shaping our policies and our stakeholder engagements to empowering them to thrive. I believe that that's the role of government, just being a facilitator and an enabler, and that's what we're committed to do.
Great. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, ladies on my panel as well, for giving us a lot to think about, a lot to chew on, and some key takeaways as well, a few calls to action for governments across the African continent. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you for listening to us, and I wish you all enjoy the rest of the sessions, CTIS Day 1 and Day 2. Thank you.
Thank you.